What's going on, everybody? How you doing today? Here I am in Lexington, South Carolina. Small-ish town, kind of like a suburb of Columbia, South Carolina. And I'm here doing a video not about Larry Gene Bell, who is a horrible, horrible man who's no longer with us, thank goodness. I'm here to tell about what he did and visit two of his known victims. He was a serial killer. I'm at Lexington Memorial Gardens here, and I've got my work cut out for me. Let me show you behind me. The directions to the first grave I'm going to, all I have is this cemetery, which is not huge. You see that road there that you saw me drive in on, went around in a circle. And I know that Sherry Smith, is here on the east side. So this is the eastern side of the cemetery. So I've got a few graves I've got to look for. I have to look, is what I'm trying to say. And not too sure where Sherry is, but I'm going to find her. I don't give up. I never will, especially when it comes to victims. And I'm going to tell you what this monster did to Sherry. And also to another person who was only 9 years old. We're going to go visit her as well. Larry Gene Bell was a dirtbag. There's my introduction to him. He was an electrician. He was a dirtbag. It was May 31st, 1985. Sherry Faye Smith, Sharon was her first name. People called her Sherry. She was from this town. On that day, she was looking forward to singing the national anthem at her high school graduation. She was at a shopping center with her boyfriend in the afternoon, and she drove home alone. She had no idea that she was being followed. When she reached home, she did what she always did. She stopped at the mailbox at the bottom of the drive. The house is quite far up the driveway. Her father was in his home office at the front of the house, and he saw his daughter's car, and he thought it was strange that she hadn't pulled up to the house yet. So he rolled down the driveway. He saw the mail on the ground, and her car was still running with the door open. Sherry was nowhere to be seen. Her purse was still on the front seat containing her diabetes medication. The county sheriff and the FBI were notified immediately. They organized a huge search effort with a 24-hour command center set up near Sherry's home. Here's where it gets worse. 2 days later, Bell called the Smiths. But it wasn't for a ransom. It was for his own gratification of some sort. He distorted his voice and he taunted the family with his description of her abduction, saying she had the fear of God in her. So Bell, he wanted to know if the family had received a letter he had sent. They hadn't yet. Investigators rushed out to the post office early to intercept the envelope, and they got it. He was just toying with the family. He was giving them false hope. What he sent the family was a handwritten letter. It was dated June 1st, 1985, entitled Last Will and Testament. It's 2 pages long. Sherry Smith bravely tells her family not to let her death ruin their lives. Quote unquote, "I love you all so damn much. Sorry, Dad. I had to cuss for once. Jesus forgave me." This guy loved the control that he had over the family, especially the women in the family. He made 8 telephone calls, 7 were recorded. But back at that time, this is mid-80s, and we're going to get into how, actually, it's kind of incredible how they did catch him, because even though this took place in the mid-80s, before DNA and all that, still used some techniques that I thought were pretty incredible. Without DNA. Back then, a trace took around 15 minutes. He would initially ask for Sherry's mom, Hilda, but he started to enjoy his talks with her older sister, Dawn, who bore a very, very striking resemblance to Sherry. He even let it slip that Dawn may have been his original target, not Sherry, because he accidentally said, "All I wanted to do was make love with Dawn." He called again with the chilling news that he and Sherry were now one soul. Describing Sherry's death. I think she's right over here. Describing Sherry's death to her sister by telling her how he had wrapped duct tape all the way around her head, suffocating her. In another call, he gave precise directions to the location of Sherry's body, saying, "Listen carefully. We're waiting. God chose us." And here she is. There used to be a photograph of her, I believe, right on that grave, and it's no longer there. The autopsy showed that she had been dead for 4 days when they found her 6 days later, about 18 miles west, behind a Masonic lodge. Duct tape residue on her face. So he kept her probably for about 2 days. In her letter, she asked that her family not let her death ruin their lives. And she also requested a closed casket. We don't know now how much of this was what she wanted to write or what he made her write. Forced her to write it. Forced her to write her last will. It says here, Sharon Faye Smith, June 25th, 1967 to June 1st, 1985. So just shy of her 18th birthday. She blossomed on earth to bloom in heaven, is what it says below. Rest in peace, Sherry. Now I'm going to take you over to where little 9-year-old Deborah is buried. There are the victims, possibly, of this monster. Where it's never been proven. It was very windy outside. It's very hot in the car, but it's very windy outside, so I wanted to be able to get in here before I drive over and say a lot of serial killers. I mean, I do true crime and I cover serial killers on my channel, obviously, quite a bit. I hope I don't glorify the serial killer. I want to bring respect and dignity to the victims and not let them be forgotten. But of course, I have an interest in true crime and serial killers, so that's why that's part of my channel. And I want to say that a lot of serial killers, when they're caught, or when you find out about them, they seem to think they're very, very smart, very, very intelligent. They think highly of themselves. Most of the time, they're morons. I mean, maybe a few had a high IQ. I don't know. This guy was a complete dirtbag and idiot, and we're better off that he's not here anymore. He reminds me of BTK, Dennis Rader, serial killer that I covered in Kansas, who thought he was smarter than the police, who thought he was so clever that he could keep getting away with it, and by taunting. And just like Dennis Rader, that would be the downfall of Larry Bell. And it's, for the time, I found it just so interesting how they were able to catch him without DNA. Let's drive over to Deborah's final resting spot now, and I'll tell you more. I'm going to tell you about how they caught this guy. And normally I don't like to do things in my car, but the wind was really bad out there. And I've got a huge mic on the camera, but with a windsock. But this is windy. Let's go. So now we've arrived at Memorial Gardens of Columbia, and this is where Deborah May Helmick, 9 years old, is laid to rest. And it's a little windy, so I'm going to try to get out of the wind to tell you what happened to little Deborah, and then we're going to walk over to her grave, which is right on the front lawn of the cemetery, right near the office. It was June 14th, 1985. Deborah and a younger brother were playing in an area beneath the front window of their trailer. A neighbor who later identified Bell saw his car drive rapidly into the trailer park, where he stopped and approached the children and grabbed little Deborah around the waist. He ran back to his car, holding her as she was kicking and screaming. And then he threw her inside the car and took off. The neighbor, he'd run outside and gotten close enough to see the license plate and got the first letter, D. 8 days later, June 22nd, he made his final call to the Smith's residence and gave directions to little Deborah's body. They located her severely decomposed body. This is June in South Carolina. Don't forget when this happened. She was dressed in a tank top, shorts, and a pair of silk adult bikini briefs pulled over her cotton underwear. This confirmed for authorities that he was the killer, who they weren't sure who it was at the time. There was a depraved sexual motivation for the crime. Adhesive material consistent with duct tape was found in little Deborah's hair, suggesting that she too had been suffocated. How he was caught is pretty impressive for the time, because you got to understand it's before DNA and things like that. A yellow legal pad used for Sherry Smith's final letter home, that's what did it. FBI analysts, they scrutinized the letter pretty closely. They used a special electrostatic device to identify the indent of an incomplete phone number left on the pad from prior handwriting. The complete phone number was traced to an Alabama business, which had been called from a South Carolina address near where the abductions and murders took place. A South Carolina couple were visiting their son in Alabama and had written down their son's number on a yellow legal pad in case their house sitter named it. Guess who the house sitter was? It was Larry Bell. The couple later identified his voice from one of the Smith family recordings. He was arrested on June 27th. Different license plate though. But not a smart guy, because the original license plate beginning with D was in his car still. So he switched the license plates, but he still carried it around with him. In his home, 6 hairs microscopically similar to Sherry Smith were found, as well as silk underwear like the kind found over little Deborah. FBI profiler said that Larry Gene Bell was one of the most sadistic murderers he'd ever dealt with. And I'm going to quote him here when he said, "He wasn't just satisfied killing a victim, he wanted to be in full control. It frustrated him when he wasn't. Committing a horrific crime wasn't enough for him. He wanted to manipulate the families of his victims." I'm going to walk over to Little Deborah's grave now. Coming to look for Deborah. Front of the cemetery, right there. And then there is the office and this tree. I'm just going to walk beyond it, and I believe Deborah should be right around here somewhere. I think this is her over here. No. I'm wrong. I'm trying to remember now where they helped me out to find her grave originally, and now I'm not too certain where she is. Wow. Somewhere near here. And I think we found her here. Deborah May Helmick, 11/12/75 to 6/15/85. There are two trials in June 1986, then in March 1987. Bell was found guilty of the kidnapping and murder of both Sherry and Deborah. He was executed on October 4th, 1996. He was an electrician. He chose to die by electric chair instead of lethal injection, saying it would send him to heaven quicker to be with the two girls he had killed. That's my story about what happened to Sherry and little Deborah. And this creature, thinking that he'd get to heaven quicker to spend with those two girls, he's nowhere near them. Hope he rots in hell, and I hope this Sherry and Deborah rested in peace. Thanks for watching, everybody. Love you all. Peace out.